Ladies and gentlemen, dear students, good evening and welcome. Today, Asian Business School is privileged and proud to host the phenomenal Nick Vujicic in this webinar on aligning your right career path and turning obstacles into opportunities. An idol for many people struggling with emotional, academic, and physical difficulties, Nick has attained great heights. He has traveled to over 60 countries, delivered more than 3,000 speeches, and inspired millions of people around the world, becoming the most in-demand motivational speaker today. His first book has been translated in over 30 languages. He skydives, surfs, swims, and paints in his spare time. Nick's success story teaches us that anything is possible with a positive attitude, never losing hope and never looking back. I quote Nick Vujicic here: "Having faith, belief, and conviction is a great thing, but your life is measured by the actions you take based on them." On behalf of Asian Business School, I welcome Nick Vujicic to the webinar. Everybody here today, get ready for an inspiring encounter that will change your life forever. Nick, the stage is all set for you.
Thank you very much. It is an honor to be with you all. I am tuning in from California this morning. It is such a privilege. First of all, congratulations to each and every one of you in coming this far in ABS, in the graduation. And I'm very sorry in some other ways for all of you where you can't be in touch, you know, face-to-face social distancing. I know with COVID-19, I'm washing my hands like crazy. And as once also a student who graduated out of university doing a double degree in accounting and financial planning, I can say that it seems as though our path of business and mentality are definitely in line in many ways. And I just want to say, first of all, congratulations and thank you so much, ABS, the Asian Business School, for having me here today. Today, I want to, first of all, for those of you who do not really know my story, I've actually been to India and most parts of Asia multiple times. And just being able to share how I was born without limbs. There is no medical reason why I was born this way. And there are times in life where circumstances or people's opinions, even the negative voices in your own mind, you know, it's very hard to sometimes capture those negative fears, especially in times of uncertainty where you feel like no one really knows something that they could say and no one can really do something in your life or in the world that really changes everything for you. And for me, being born without limbs was definitely challenging. For those of you who haven't seen a full picture, I was born without limbs, but I have a little left foot, and no one knew what that little left foot could really do. And the doctors, when they saw me, they told my parents, "We're very, very sorry. He's not going to walk. He's not going to go to school, and he's not going to have a quality of life at all." Little did they know, though, that even though the law in Australia in 1987, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, the law in Victoria was not to allow special needs children to go to a mainstream school. We had to go to a special school. And my mom and dad actually challenged that thinking and were able to bring me as an example to trailblaze how integration could really happen with the next generation back in the 1980s in Australia. And little did they know that that little boy now would travel all around the world and try to give advice to governments trying to do the same thing today and helping everyone understand that there is potential and value in all human beings. And for me, it was difficult to believe that there was a plan. that I could say, oh, wow, there's a greater purpose for my life. All I could see was that, I went to school, I got teased, I couldn't do everything that everyone else could do. I felt alone sometimes. I went through a depression from age 8 to 12. And I'm just going here not to make you feel sorry for me, but for you to understand that even during the times of suicide, that I attempted suicide at age 10, I felt like there was no hope. And I did understand at that point enough about my life that I predicted my future in a fearful conclusion. And I was depressed between ages 8 and 12. And it wasn't till age 13, though, that I realized that the biggest disabilities of the heart and mind is fear. And when we look at fear, we understand that we have rational fear and irrational fear. When we look at COVID-19 and any uncertainties, when you look at 2008 World Economic Correction or collapse, as it was termed, or when you look at worldwide crisis or your nation's crisis, we know that fear is one of the biggest powerful emotions that we need to deal with, that if not dealt with or categorized correctly, it's easy to actually be hijacked and taken over by fear. And it's as if sometimes you're driving a car, or I know in India and Asia, there's a lot of scooters and tuk-tuks. It's as if, we take our hands off the wheel, and if we're still pressing the accelerator, if we're not in control by our emotions, then our first reaction is to just stop. And some of us are like, man, what do we do now? I've just graduated, I did my best, and now I don't even know what job opportunities are going to happen in my life. Well, for me, it was looking at my life from a perspective of, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to be able to be a really good father. Why am I somebody that could even be worthy as a father? Because I can't even pick up my kids when they're crying. I can't even hold my wife's hand. I will never be able to do or have a life that's fulfilling. I'm never going to be happy. And when we understand that there was rational fear to know, well, will Nick be able to do this, this, and this, and this? Where the irrational fear takes over, and if we don't hold it captive, then we let that in our mind say, no, I conclude basically herein that I will never get married, I will never be independent, and I'm just going to be a burden to those around me. And I could have played the victim card. And I want you to know that I'm not someone who can say, oh, don't worry, your problem's nothing compared to mine. That's not the message at all. The message here is understanding that we can all play the victim card. And we all understand that COVID-19 has actually affected everyone. Yet in our life, we must understand the power of perseverance and perspective. Many people look at me and say, wow, Nick's so inspiring. He's so strong. He's a man of inspiration. When they look at me without arms and legs, it's quickly solved in their mind that, wow, Nick has become a strong man, because quickly you can see he must have overcome a lot of challenges. And I want to ask you today, when was the last big challenge that you've had? How scared were you? Was it a year ago? Who were you 3 years ago? What fears did you actually get through? Are you still here? Are you breathing? Are you healthy? For as long as you're breathing and you're vertical and you're breathing on your own, I want you to know that this part of your life, even though it seems as though it's the end of the chapter, it is the end of a chapter of your life, graduating right now. And you had plans and dreams and anticipation of what the next year could look like. Just like my parents had dreams, hopes, and anticipation for their firstborn son. And it was almost like we had to go through a grieving process of our anticipation of the next chapter in our life. Whether that's my parents, whether that's us going through something where a chapter of our life has ended and we've had to actually understand our hope and dream of next year is uncertain right now. Now, it doesn't mean that it's not going to happen, but everyone understands that no one knows what the future holds at this point. But what we do know is, looking back, we become stronger, wiser, and many people look at me with that strength and admiration, but it's not anything more admiring than you going through your struggle today. It's everyone going through life who doesn't give up. And when we don't give up and when we do persevere, we understand that no challenge in our life will define us, will define our value. Even if we seem like, man, I did all this and this and this, and some of us carry the weight on our shoulders. I've done this for me, or I've done this for my family, and I feel like a failure. Well, we understand that COVID-19 was none of our fault. And what we understand is that failure is part of the progress and process of life. And when you have that perspective in life, we understand that those who continue to keep on going start to see also obstacles as opportunities. I actually, out of all the people who actually inspired me to be a speaker, it wasn't my mom and my dad. When I told my parents, hey, I want to be a speaker, my mom and dad got so angry at me because in year 2000, around that time, when I graduated high school, there was no real famous motivational Australian speaker. There was no one that I knew around me who was a speaker. And it was actually the janitor at my high school who looked at me, Indian man Arnold, 61 years old, and he said, you're going to be a speaker. He was the one cleaning the toilets at my school, and he turned to me and said, you're going to be a speaker. What was amazing was that we understand that the biggest fear in the world is actually public speaking. And I'll tell you right now that the first speech that I did was actually organized by him after me saying no and refusing for 3 months. He twisted my arm. I said yes. And when I got up in front of that little crowd of 5 or 6 people, my palms were sweating, my knees were shaking, I couldn't feel my legs, and I had no idea what to say. But I leapt courageously forward in trying to do something that I've never done before. And when you have courage and understanding that all you know is what you know, and the unknown is the unknown, don't forget about the positive unknowns. Don't forget that there are opportunities that come through obstacles. The biggest entrepreneurial companies that really were birthed in the last world economic crisis. I mean, look at India, for example, and look at Asia. How many massive breakthroughs economically happened actually about 10 years ago or 15 years ago? And yes, there was a pause. Yes, there was uncertainty, but it were those people who took advantage of understanding that the biggest entrepreneurial successes came from disruptive technologies, disruptive layers of business processes that involved HR, that involved technology. And actually, we understand that this is part of the evolution of the world. And in entrepreneurship, many of you doing MBA, for me, I was in the stock market as a teenager. I was in real estate investing as a young man. I went into financial literacy because my dad taught me, Nick, you need to understand financial literacy, because no one's really going to employ you as much as you need to start your own business and have employees to be your hands and feet. And for me, it was understanding that I need to do all that I can and not just focus on the unknowns and question about that, but do what you can. And in the unknowns, don't forget the positive unknowns. Who knew where some new evolution businesses actually came up through crisis? Who knew that this boy without arms and legs could now be a pair of hands and feet that go around the world, 74 countries, meeting 21 presidents and encouraging people all around the world. I never thought that that was possible, but it starts with doing all that you can and not forgetting that obstacles do present opportunities. I want to ask you today, have you ever written down your dream goal? You think you have a dream goal. Some of you are saying, I actually want to go into a job and then on the side, one day start a business. On the side, one day write a book. On the side, do this or do that. I want to tell you right now that in your life, there are times where we think we know the path and dream, but we actually never believe it. And when you sit down and actually give yourself a chance, some of us are actually one of our biggest discouragers in our lives. Sometimes we have discouraging people who tell us, this is why you can't do this. This is why you'll never be this. But sometimes in our life, we need to first stop getting in the way of our full potential. When you have those negative thoughts, go back to who you know who you are, your value, your dream, your goal, your values in your life. Write down on a piece of paper, this is what I want, and this is what I hope for. And I normally get people to actually write down their obstacles, 3 obstacles. Maybe your obstacle right now is one of the ones of the 3 is the unknowns of the COVID-19. Now, are we going to stay here in the unknowns forever? No. Will we get through this? Yes. When we get through uncertainties, don't we become more stronger, nimble, wiser? Yes. Is it waiting that we're not people who are afraid before we feel courageous? Courageous people go back to the basics and understand what they know, and then understand what they cannot change, but then focus on what they can. When you write down your obstacles, you understand pretty quickly that most of the people who've done this exercise, 99.9% of our obstacles come to the conclusion that these obstacles can somehow, sometime, some way change. Now, I have no arms and legs. Remember that, okay? That is not changed. But courageous people are those who don't focus on the victimization card, who don't allow themselves to fearfully conclude, well, that's it, I give up. Who understand that me waiting for more strength or an emotion to feel courageous is not the right attitude either. Here are the 3 things I want to give you. Number 1, the attitude of gratitude. Be thankful that you got this far. Be thankful for who you are. Be thankful that you're alive, the most important things in your life, and your life is ahead of you. Understand that courage and courageous people are not people who just wait before they then don't feel afraid to then do something. Courageous people are those who understand that the power through attitude of gratitude, if you're doing something significant in your life, then the magnitude of fear and embracing failure as part of the process is the mindset you have to have. Don't feel defeated. Sure, if you have to grieve about the anticipation of what next year looks like, grieve, give yourself time, but be thankful first for what you have, see who you are, and know that nothing on the outside defines who you are on the inside. And courageous people is not when you're not afraid, it's when you move forward even while you're afraid. Number 2, when you go through these things, remember, do what my suggestion was. Write down who you are and your goal and your obstacles, and actually figure out that what you can do is doing all that you can to change those obstacles and try to get through with perseverance and know that you're going to get through this. You have to somehow encourage yourself with a long-term goal. And one of the long-term goals that I did when I was feeling like everything around me was falling and collapsing is I put a photo of an orphan that I didn't know who that person, that child was, but that little girl smiling at me as I put that little thumbnail photo of her on my mirror. Every time I went to go look at my hair and looking in the mirror, I saw that little orphan looking at me. My parents actually were in refugee camps. My dad was 15, my mom was 6. They were poor, and they always taught us, don't forget the poor. And for me, I wanted to one day, my long-term goal was to somehow help one orphan. I was able to help orphans along my life. And now me and my wife, not only do we have 4 biological children, which is a dream come true, but we actually sponsor 15 children around the world. And when you try and understand that it is important to keep the long-term view, don't be your biggest discourager, be your biggest encourager. And one of the ways that you can encourage yourself is remind yourself of the long-term goals. And when you do that, you also understand that you are going to take one day at a time. That's the third thing. Aligning your career path with what's going on around you, aligning first your soul and your spirit to then change your mindset. For me, when I was saying as a teenager, okay, I don't know for sure if I'm going to get married, but I stop here in today to stop saying, I'm never going to get married. I'm never going to get a job. I'm always going to be alone. Well, I don't need to hold my wife's hand today. I need to just hold her heart, and you don't need arms and legs for that. My children, when they cry, I can't put my arms around them, but they come and put their arms around me. You know, I realized that my parents did something so great. They didn't give me everything I wanted, when I wanted it, how I wanted it, because that wouldn't prepare me for the world well. The world doesn't give you what you want, when you want it, how you want it. And when you get all that, you feel entitled. I started vacuuming the floor at age 6 in my home to make $2 a week, that if I wanted something at the store, I would actually save up my own money and buy my own things. And that helped me to understand that here I am, that's my goal, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take one step at a time, one day at a time. And it gave me that confidence to have that courage to tackle bigger obstacles down the line. But in that third thing, I just want to say this as well. I couldn't do this on my own. I needed friends, faith, family, people that I needed to counsel with sometimes. Maybe in this time, you know, it's actually 2 oxymorons in this next thought pattern. Watch this. They say that social media has actually disconnected society with each other. Now we say that with that in mind, that we're only texting people, we're not conversing. When I speak to you face to face, I'm just looking at my phone. We actually now, with social distancing during COVID-19, we're still texting, we're going on social media. But what I've realized is how important it is to not lose the connectivity with my dearest friends. I pick up the phone and understand that I may not have anything so powerful to say. Just like you, we all have a fear of inadequacy. It's like, well, they're going through something, I'm going through something, we're all experiencing something at the same time. How can I ever add value to somebody else? Just actually picking up the phone and connecting with someone and actually thanking them for being your friend. Checking on them. How are you doing? Are you doing okay? How's your parents? How are your grandparents? It helps you to even break in your day, understanding how to stop and pause, and take out any negative thoughts in your mind, hold it captive, and put in positive things deliberately to say, no, this is who I am. I'm going to be thankful for what I have. I'm going to control what I can. And I'm going to put one day in front of the other, one step, one foot in front of the other. And even when I don't get a miracle, I can try be a miracle for someone else. And that's the greater purpose of life. That even if you have money, even if you have success, there are many people who have money and success, but really still feel empty on the inside. When you put your happiness in temporary things, your happiness will be temporary. And the reason why I'm happy is not because, I've become a speaker. You know that 85% of small businesses within the first 12 months actually fail, right? You know that, you've learned that, right? That's how entrepreneurship is. There's those who succeed through the first 12 months. There's a big portion of those left who actually fail because of success. And the reason is because they haven't adapted and evolved in their career path with the ever-evolving circumstances economically, technologically in the world. Welcome to a change that just happened to be upon your graduation. What's the opportunity and the good thing here? I could say to you, well, now you know that you haven't lost a job in a way, well, I never got a job. No, but it's pretty safe to say that there's a massive evolution globally that now we need to pivot and embrace this change to say, what else can I do now to change my position to then be a fresh graduate, ready to learn, hands-on, do whatever I need to do and embrace this and add value to a company that has embraced this change. I feel like you coming in has actually equalized some of the playing field. Whereas a fresh graduate, there might be opportunities and jobs now with different ways or an evolution in their job description where previous experience doesn't really count at this point. Now, I can't say that that's for everyone, but understanding that we need to be nimble and seeing what we can do. And I don't want to give you false hope, but don't give yourself a bleak future just because of unknowns. And at this point, here's the worst fear to overcome. Ready? And you can do it. Ready? The unknown of knowing how long the unknown will remain the unknown. But here's the beautiful thing about the unknown. There is always hope. Just don't give up. If you can learn that now, at the beginning of your mentality perspective, to embrace and evolve and adapt, that is the greatest skill that many people haven't learned in the last 10 years. You have an edge now, an education now that is not done in textbooks, but through life and experience. I want you to know that this is going to be okay. You're going to get through this. Just don't give up. We are going to become stronger, wiser, and we're going to endure through this together. I love you very, very much. And I hope that some of these key points have helped you to understand that nothing's lost. Sure, our hopes for next year, just like my parents had hope for me when I was born without arms and legs, yet they embraced the obstacle. And with time, with perseverance, with an attitude of gratitude, we're taking one day at a time and becoming our biggest encouragers and seeing the purpose in our existence with each other, seeing that we're going to get through this together. You will reach your greatest potential in your life. I feel much sadness for people who have everything going for them and they play the victim card. And I'm like, you got to do what you can to reach your full potential, because anybody who did a significant magnitude of success understood it took significant sacrifice, courage, and persistence with a mindset of perspective to embrace anything that gets in the way. So I love you, Asian Business School graduates, and to the faculty. I hope this has encouraged you somehow. Keep nimble, because this won't be the last crisis. Don't get scared about that. But I have become accustomed to obstacles. And this is how you can start doing it too. And on the other side, as you persevere, you'll see the opportunities and reach your full potential. Thank you so much.
It was beautiful, Nick. And we've had a barrage of questions from the students. And
Great.
yeah, we could begin with the first one here. There would be some students who would personally want to question you. There are some here that we could start with. You are an inspiration to millions. How does it feel? And who inspires you?
You know, it's a responsibility with making sure that I do everything I can in love. Being in the spotlight has a burden that many people don't understand. Many people also see the Nick who's a speaking head, if you will, who also doesn't understand the responsibilities, not just in my family and my business as a CEO of very small companies, but the responsibility and stewardship of trying to make the world a better place. Yet at the same time, it's what we've got to understand that that we got to take one day at a time. And the second part of the sentence, sorry, the second part of the question was, how does it feel? And then what was the other one? Sorry. Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
1 second. Who is your inspiration?
So my parents were my biggest inspiration when I was a child. As a teenager, there was a man that I came across who was called Phil. And he actually had a rare disease, Lou Gehrig's disease, that started disabling his body ability to walk, to talk. But he was persistent to start a website using laser technology with his head, to start a website to encourage people who are bedridden, to let them know spiritually, mentally, emotionally, this is not going to stop him having hope and happiness in his life. And I realized, wow, a guy who can't talk, can't walk, who's motivating people, who's helping people find hope. I can walk, I can talk. What could I do? And that was age 19 in 2002. And I just have to say, I'm most inspired today by my wife.
Wow, it's beautiful. Nick, the second question. You've been through a lot of ups and downs. What is that one thing that still keeps you going?
I think that looking at my children and looking at my wife keeps me going. Looking back as well, knowing that no matter what obstacle we have, that those who persevere will continue to see strength and courage being built. Life is very, very interesting. And again, I just see the blessings that I'm only 37 years old. And so it's very difficult at this time for any speaker with COVID-19. And what I've realized is this is my opportunity to hit the reset button and actually realign my career path with the evolution of what's going on. That actually pushes me forward to my biggest dream, which is actually reaching more people without having to travel around the world as much. And so having that mindset of just taking one day at a time and tackling those obstacles as opportunities.
Well, we have one student with us, Bhavya Dora, who would like to personally put the question to you, Nick.
Hi, sir. My question to you is, you are an epitome of positivity. I do always try and keep myself positive, but there are times I cannot. What should I do? Because now, as my life is starting where I have to create my future, how do I keep myself positive?
Very good question. So, taking one day at a time and also making sure that you're thankful for things, but also giving yourself time. You know, I'm the motivational speaker who talks about positivity. But if you looked at me for real in January, just a couple months ago, I had a mental block. I had times of panic because we're like, wow, what is going on? And no one knows any more than I do. And I feel like that's part of the human part of all of us. We all have to go through those feelings. We just can't continue to be controlled by those feelings for forever. You know, give yourself time. Know that this was not your fault. You know, for me, I always go back to just taking sometimes 3 hours at a time and trying to go back to the whiteboard. I actually love doing something where I'm like, hey, what else could I do with what I'm given and what I can't control? And I actually normally every 3 months do a whiteboard session, reverse engineering what's my short term, mid-term, and long-term goals. And I happen to do that probably 8 times in the last just 16 weeks, just because things were changing so much. And it's an exercise just to write things down. Journaling helps me as well. Talking to somebody helps me as well, and talking to other people who might have different ideas that I haven't thought of. And so sometimes it's understanding that maybe we're supposed to start our business from scratch, and maybe there's a couple people who are thinking the same way. Maybe you team up with people and try something in a perspective. I can't make it custom for anyone here because I don't know what you're going through, but that would be my answer. Journal, whiteboard session, and give yourself time. We all go through times of not feeling like doing things or even having mental blocks where we can't be productive, including myself, but give yourself time.
Thank you so much, sir.
Hope you got your answer. Well, Nick, all children are born equal, but there are various stimuli that begin to shape their baby personalities. Surely there must have been times in your early infancy, Nick, when you must have felt different from other kids your age. What made you overcome your difficulties at that time? It's very difficult for children, you know.
You know, and those difficulties aren't just in childhood. I think everyone still continues to compare each other. Even as parents, we look at other parents and, well, wow, look at their children. Wow, look at their marriage. Wow, look at their social media. I think comparison is such a big negative distraction that really poisons our mind with jealousy sometimes, and a feeling of inadequacy, because in our mind we feel that culturally, socially, we're not as important as somebody else, which is not true. No matter who you are, you're just as important than anybody else, and no one's less important than you as well, or valuable. And so for me, as a teenage, as a child, when someone teased me for how I looked with no arms and legs, I'm like, man, they're not my friend because of how I look. They missed out on a good friendship. And I look at them and I'm like, man, I could have teased you about your nose, your freckles, or your hair, but I chose not to. I didn't judge you by the cover of the book. And so I learned pretty early in my life not to judge the book by its cover, which also helped me to understand that sometimes when I put limitations on me to get out of my own way and get out of my own full potential. So I feel like dealing with that insecurity and distraction of comparison really needs to be addressed. And we need to be honest with ourselves and overcome that.
We have Kushagra Tiwari. with his question for Nick.
Hi, sir. I have a question for you. A person who has lost all of his hopes blames his. The only thing he thinks is that there will be a turning point which will change my life. So should we wait for that turning point or should we create it by our own? And if the turning point comes, then how to recognize it?
That's an interesting question. First of all, for me, the turning points in my life were age 13 and 15, and then 17 and 19. But you don't realize it till later. There were 4 pillars of turning around. 13 years old, I hurt my foot playing soccer, and I realized I had a choice, either to be angry for having no arms and no legs or being thankful for my little foot. Age 15 was my faith turning point, and with that pillar, age 17 was when my janitor encouraged me to speak for the first time. Age 19 was when I met Phil, who really encouraged me to become a worldwide speaker. So looking back, there are turning points now that I had recognized maybe 4 or 5 years later, delayed. A lag of understanding that. Making your own turning point, I think if you continue to have that perspective of what I've shared about doing all that you can, if I didn't do all that I could, and I wasn't a person who was courageous, who tried things while he was afraid, that didn't have an attitude of gratitude, that didn't talk to people when he needed help, I wouldn't be where I am. So all those things that I shared, it's doing all that you can to give the turning point actually happen for you or in you or around you. So it is in your control in a way to make sure that when you do everything you can, then you give those turning points a chance, which you may not recognize for a while.
Thank you so much, sir.
Nick, today's youth can't handle failure and they look for an escape in suicide. How would you advise such students?
You know, I feel like it's a worldwide understanding because we're all human. And me as a person who once actually attempted suicide in the bathtub, it was because of, again, irrational fears that concluded my own future for myself. And it was very difficult for me to believe that there was hope. And when you see what you see and you feel what you feel based on what you know, which maybe is hanging your hat on a lot of unknowns, if you just got all of that, here is the point. You still have control to give your broken pieces a chance. You see, all I could feel and all I could see were broken pieces, but you don't know what beautiful things can come from your broken pieces until you give your broken pieces a chance. I actually was an actor in a short film called The Butterfly Circus, and there's one line on YouTube, you can see it, where it says, the greater the struggle, the more glorious the triumph. And I feel like we must embrace that understanding. Please don't give up. There is not another you. And many people have different philosophies of life. I want you to know that you must believe that you have to do all that you can to not give up in this life and just hope for another chance at life after this. You have to do this for your own sake. And also understand that I had no idea what the future could hold. And looking back, man, am I glad that I didn't give up. Look at what I would have missed out on. My wife, my kids, traveling around the world, speaking to you, using technology today. On a graduation, that's crazy. You just don't know what's around the corner until you go around the corner. So you must persevere. Don't give up. And if you're thinking of suicide, know that I love you. Don't give up and talk to someone. You don't have to do this alone.
We have Simran Miglani waiting anxiously to put her question to you, Nick.
Hello, sir. My question is, what advice would you like to give to your younger self?
I would love to have a letter from the future from me to me to say, don't worry, dream big, it's going to be okay. And maybe don't get distracted by many things that you don't need to get distracted by. And that's not just the bad things, it's also the good things. I feel like as an entrepreneur, visionary, I feel like I've been distracted and not laser focused as much as I could have been over these 37 years of life, where I graduated at 21. So it's about 16 years ago. And I feel like as I'm getting older, I'm realizing less is more. Being thankful intentionally, not just, yeah, I'm thankful, but sitting down, self-reflecting, being thankful for a loving family, being thankful that I have my health, being thankful that I could get an education. I think that's what I would give my younger self if I could. An encouragement letter from the future.
Nick, being selfless, altruistic, generous is good. Not denying that. Is it wrong to love oneself? How would you advise an individual to maintain a balance between being selfish and selfless? Very pertinent, but...
When you understand that your value as a human being, you're a soul, spirit, mind, and body. And everyone's a soul, spirit, mind, and body. And when you understand that your value is not determined on anything on the outside, nor the level of intellect or education or whatever, it's understanding that we all are irreplaceable human beings. And when you look at yourself and look yourself in the mirror, looking in your own eyes, your eyes are the windows to the soul of yours. And when you look into other people's eyes, you're looking into their soul. And I love the Asian culture where most of the time it's always, looking right in your eyes. There are some Western countries that don't do that at all. And I appreciate that in other cultures where you do take time, because subconsciously and consciously you're relating to them on a level of respect. And I feel like we need to really, when we understand self-respect and self-love, not as a prideful thing, but a humility perspective, to know that no one's less important than me and no one's more important than me, because we all have equal value. So I think that's how we remind ourselves of having that balance in our life.
We have Varunjeet now, who'd like to put his question to you, Nick.
Hello, sir. So I want to ask, is it good or bad to be overthinker or too ambitious? And relating to that, I want to ask, when you are most fully yourself?
When are you most?
Fully yourself.
Fully yourself. Fully yourself. For me, it's sometimes let me start there. It's sometimes really good to be stopped in the tracks when we put so much confidence in rhythm and believing that everything that has happened in the past will just continue in the future. coming to COVID-19, it's been great to be self-aware and self-reflective at this time, to really understand that we are not in control. There are things that are out of our control. And I think it's beautiful to have that array of humility again, to get in touch with our soul, our spirit, to reflect on what was important to me that I did not focus on. How maybe have I hurt someone, or how have I not thanked someone that I should have thanked? I think that self-reflection is very, very important. And I feel like when you're intentionally self-reflective, as long as you're true to yourself, you're always yourself and you're fully yourself. But I think it's at those times of pauses and reflection and intentional gratitude, I think that's when we really be in touch with thinking and pondering and pausing in that. And that doesn't mean that we're not fully ourselves when we're not there. As long as we remain true to ourselves, which will be shown on the outside, that if I'm speaking to A, B, C, and then I'm speaking to someone else, if I'm different to them, then I'm not really being honest with myself. So I feel like as long as you're honest with yourself and you're true to yourself, that truly comes out of your heart with how you do anything, say anything, interact with anyone. So I think we're always fully ourselves as long as we keep that attitude of gratitude and humility. But I'm enjoying this reset button as a self-reflective process as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So Nick, not just a powerful motivational speaker, and of course, let me add, the possessor of a fabulous mesmeric voice, you're an entrepreneur too. Can you give a few tips to our students on how to become successful entrepreneurs?
I think a lot of us, there are a lot of us who do a business degree, but never really learn some personal financial literacy skills. We know about tools for investments. We know about financial planning. We know about accounting. We know about policies and all these things, which is all very, very important. But for your own sake, there are things that I've done since age 17 that have helped me to understand that it's not about just accomplishing the immediate task ahead, but remembering the long-term goals and actually not planning for, hope, well, I hope it's not going to fail. I hope it's not going to fail. Excuse me. But in the mindset of what's going to happen when it's successful, and believing in that and getting ready for that too. And I feel like financial literacy has been something that I've been building since age 17, helping me understand not just saving and budgeting, but the basics of investing, the power of compound interest, and reading other books of entrepreneurs that didn't even get a degree before they became a multimillionaire. People that never even graduated high school. And so that, I think, is deliberately feeding yourself entrepreneurially from other entrepreneurs who have gone before you and trying to glean that wisdom from them as well.
Nick, you've played football, surfed, skydived, and been a scuba diver. What next? Also, what draws you to this sort of sport?
Being close to the beach and in the lifestyle of Australia for the first 23 years of my life, we had opportunities to do that and we just loved it. So it wasn't like there was something that, influenced me apart from my culture in soccer. We all love soccer. But it's something that I just had an attitude to say, well, I don't know what I can't do until I try. And I just wanted to try things and I wanted to experience things. And there were things that I couldn't do. And when I couldn't do them, I focused on what I could do. and what I did have. And so that was a healthy perspective that I had to have. Next, you know, one day I want to be able to, I've driven a car. I think it's something that I don't need to do or want to do for the long term. Cars are going to drive us eventually. But the bottom line is I love being outside and I love the independence of my wheelchair. And I have a wheelchair that actually goes off track. And I feel like one day I'll get one of those quads, you know, those off-road quads, and try adapt it that I can actually drive myself and go recreationally out in the wilderness and go with my family, and we all get in our quads. And I think that would be fun.
Everyone's life has that one moment which changes their life. What was your moment? And how can our students identify that moment and act upon it?
It's a really good question. There were people who inspired me. It's moments of moments. My teachers inspired me. My friends inspired me. My faith inspired me. My family inspired me. And I think it's building on that and recognizing that. And so how to do that, I feel like at the same time, I know this doesn't even make sense, but when you've recognized that there are moments and people in your life that have encouraged you, one of the ways to actually give yourself more fuel and more motivation is to actually encourage someone else. It's unbelievable. Let me just get a sip of water, 1 second. It's unbelievable how getting out of depression, one of the keys that I found was actually convincing myself that I had a greater purpose, that I was not defined by circumstances or other people's opinion. And one of the things that I realized was the importance of encouraging someone else who could use some. And when you've done that and you see some kind of reaction where no matter what voices or things are being said in your head, you can walk away saying, no, today I know that I made a difference in someone else's life. I may not be able to see the end part of that arc of the seed that I was planting in them, but that belief, when you try to believe in someone else when they don't believe in themselves, it's just like a Nick Vujicic coming in your moment right now to tell you, don't give up. And then using that as fuel to pass it on and pay it forward, where it instigates courage in the world or realm of fear, purposeness, and reminding yourself of a greater purpose, act of kindness, instigating purpose and purposeness, being that foundation that clears the clouds and cloudiness of the wondering of, why am I here? What's going on? How am I going to get through this? And focusing in on the fact that you just helped someone in a significant way, even though you haven't seen it significantly. There is a beauty in continuing to even try and instigate what you for yourself can't do for yourself. The moments of people's encouragement for you, like today, use that to try and encourage someone else as well. I think that has given me fuel to keep going.
Well, Nick, the questions are, going on, coming in, but I think we'd like to speak about the assignments. On your life history, we sent across assignments to these students. And surprisingly, for the first time, you've been a student yourself, so you do know that students take their own sweet time to submit assignments. But for Nick Vujicic, the assignments, I tell you, there was an onslaught. and we have forwarded one to you, and we'd like you to talk about it a little bit. And this is Kirti Jain, and she's present here as a participant. And we chose her assignment because it seemed that she really spent a lot of time understanding who Nick is.
Oh, that's awesome.
She's there with us.
Hello, sir. I was actually very honored to write something on such a person, such an inspirational person. I could just relate so much. I heard your videos. I got so motivated, and I felt so motivated. I actually used to just, bend down to obstacles and, like I couldn't, face them. But then after hearing you, I got so motivated, and now I'm sure that I will be able to turn my obstacles into opportunities, for sure.
Oh, I love you. Thank you for sharing, and thanks to everyone for your love. I feel it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
My privilege.
Yeah. So as we are drawing to a close, what would you like to advise our Asian Business School management students regarding their career progress, Nick, in short?
In short, I would say don't walk away from the perspective and framing of life is a whole lifetime of learning. Whether it's in business, whether it's in family, whether it's in society, just because you graduated from a degree, the way I like to see it is that I've graduated from life when I go. And life is a whole lifetime of learning. And there are many ups and downs. And in that, don't wait for this rainbow that you can never reach. Be content as much as you can with what you have and where you're at. Take one day at a time and go for your dream, go for your goal, but also don't forget to enjoy and learn all along the way.
And lastly, Nick, we'd like you to give a message to Asian Business School.
Asian Business School, congratulations on those of you who are graduating. I love you very, very much. Thank you for being an opportunity, a beacon of light, to giving students opportunities to expand their horizon. And it's been my honor and privilege to have been a keynote speaker in 2020 graduation here in April. So thank you so much for having me, and I wish you all the very best. And if anybody would like to hear more things, I have the Nick Vujicic podcast. If you go to my youtube.com/Nick Vujicic, you will see I'll be actually doing some more things on that podcast towards business or executive leadership, inspiring people, and motivating monologues. So I love you very, very much, and thank you for having me here. It's been a wonderful experience.
Nick, thank you so much for sharing your life with us. These were precious takeaways, and we'll hold them very close to our heart for a long time. Asian Business School appreciates your presence, your time, and the energies that were directed towards motivating our students. We look forward to your visit to India, when we would be delighted to host you once again. Thank you very much, Nick, for being on the show.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.